Episode here at the Moel RP channel. My name is ChaosMoel, and today we finally have some more information from the Diablo 4 developers regarding what to expect of the end game of Diablo 4. And unfortunately, the video itself didn't have like a new bunch of information you have never heard about. We have already seen some of the stuff in the open beta we have played ourselves. And then, of course, there's a lot of information there which they talked about in previous videos. But it's pretty cool to have some fresh update on what to actually expect from the end game. And last but not least, they talked about PvP, which is pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit about PvE, and then we talk about PvP, what they have planned there. And for PvE, it's pretty simple, actually. They are talking first about how when you reach max level, you can start to increase your word tier to get better loot, to get better rewards, but also make things a little bit more harder. And then you are starting out to make your character stronger. And of course, they did talk about the talent tree and how that works. We have already seen that in the open beta. Nothing really has changed there. But they also showcased the Paragon system, which is really a lot of information. We can see it right here. Let me stop them right here a little bit. Yes, I will pause the video now and then. But the Paragon system is very different from what we have seen from Diablo 3. As you might know, when you have played Diablo 3, the Paragon system is endless there, and you can level up to like 1,000 levels and just increase your strength, your intelligence, your willpower, dexterity, and so on and so forth. It's literally just making all your characters stronger and stronger through those points. The new Paragon system will work a little bit different because it is a huge talent tree. Think a little bit like Path of Exile, and yes, you will increase your stats here. Simple things like increasing your strength by 5, increasing your willpower by 5, right? But it's also very important to note that there will be some nodes here and there which will actually give you significant power increases. Like the one they have chosen here, and they blinked over it very quickly, is increasing your damage up to 25% the more crowd controls enemies are surrounding you, right? And you will see those type of perks being around quite a bit. Then you can also do something with glyphs. I think you can improve, like you can put in glyphs in those glyph areas, and then the glyphs will do something very specific. They haven't really talked about that in this video. This is just something we have heard before. What I also find really, really cool and what they are showcasing here is that you can actually turn the Paragon system. You see it right here, how they're moving it. And you might say, wait, why would I turn the Paragon system around? Well, pretty simple. Just think about it for a second. Let's say you're coming in from the bottom. You're coming in here, right? And you want to increase your fireball on your Sorc. And this is the one which will increase the damage of your fireball. So you're putting in a few points, and bam, you have increased your fireball damage. But now think about it again. You're coming in from the bottom, and you want to increase your ice sphere, or your ice spell, like your blizzard or something. And that will be increased at this point. So what you would have to do is you have to go all the way up here, losing all those points just to increase your blizzard damage. So thankfully, you can turn around the Paragon board, and you will be much, much closer to your entry point on the Paragon system. And I think that is pretty cool, and I think there will be a lot of cool builds on the Paragon board. Now, of course, it would take a while to get there, and so you have much more levels you basically have to do. But again, this is a system which will probably keep you on your toes, especially if you are not running to YouTube immediately, or you are not running to like Google and look for the rogue build or the barbarian build or something like that, but you actually do some homebrew stuff. This is what I like to do. I like to create my own builds and make them work. And it will keep me on my toes for a very long time, because I now have to think like how I will put all those Paragon systems together and just make the build stick without going to a website and then just find all the information there. And this will probably be pretty cool for the people who like to tinker around with their own builds. Then the next system they did talk about quickly is a thing we have already seen in the beta, so I will not touch too long on this, is the aspect system. And now that they have been showing most of the list here, it seems like with the other areas coming to the game, we will get all the aspects of the different legendaries in one dungeon or another. That's how it looks. There's no confirmation on this yet. It still seems like there might be more specific legendary aspects, which will only be found on legendaries, than there is gaining through dungeons. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Again, they haven't really touched on this too much, but it seems like in the beta there was only a limited amount of aspects you could get, which makes kind of sense because you also only had a limited amount of dungeons you could go into. And now with the full version, of course, you will have like a much longer list of new dungeons and new aspects available to you. So they showcased that. Another thing they were talking about was nightmare dungeons. This is something we have not seen in the beta itself because, well, cannot do any nightmare dungeons in the beta, but the system, the interface was already there, so people could take a look at it. And it's very close to what World of Warcraft is doing nowadays, where you can increase the difficulty of the dungeon more and more and more, and add more and more like special affixes to a dungeon, which you have to look out for. So they would definitely take the World of Warcraft system and basically put that into Diablo 4, which I think is a good idea, because from what I've heard from World of Warcraft players who are using this system, they really like it, and it keeps even dungeons they have already been doing like 30-40 times still fresh and kind of exciting and different. And so we will see something very similar here with the nightmare dungeons in Diablo 4, and that should be pretty cool. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Now, the next thing I am actually really excited about it is the Endgame Exploration, and they have a new system in place when you are reaching the end game, which is, oh god, I forgot the name of it. I did compare it with rifts, right? That when you were going into an area and when you were going into, they call those zones, and when you were now going into the zone in Diablo 4, things would change. Like your surroundings would change. The weather would change. Like there can be like fire raining from the sky. The enemies will get more affixes. And it's basically like a pocket dungeon in the open world where you can go to, and then if you manage to defeat them, you will get a currency and of course items where you can open up those specific loot crates you can only find in those zones, which will give you some really powerful items like uniques. You can see it right here, and you will only find those chests in those zones, right? And again, for somebody who loves to look for loot, that's exciting and lets you just hunt for those zones. Because I have to admit, I love to do the events in the open world, even more so than the actual dungeons. To have something similar like the dungeons I can just do in the overworld, maybe even with other people I just find on the go, is something which keeps me really excited, and I'm looking forward to that, right? So that is coming. They also, this is something they talked about before and they talked about for a while, is this tree, right? You can find this tree in the end game. And, well, to put it simple, the tree is giving you dailies. It's giving you daily quests you can give. It's called the Tree of Whispers. And then at the end of the daily, you can choose a reward, like getting a collection of one-handed weapons, a collection of boots, or a collection of gauntlets, and maybe you will get some uniques out of it, or some other items you need. And you can just do those. It's not even dailies. It's like missions you can do over and over and over. And then you just go out there, kill some werewolves in an area, as they explained, or you're clearing up a dungeon. Like, it's literally, it's giving you daily quests you can do, right? They have explained this tree before, and it's still there, and it's definitely one of the main things you would do to probably gain some loot, right? Now, let's talk about last but not least thing, PvP. PvP was also talked about in this video. Unfortunately, no real information here with what to expect. It will be a PvP mode, so there is still like PvE happening in those fields of hatred, but there's also, you can fight against other players, and yes, you can also meet group of players even as a single player, which might make these things a little bit more problematic. And what you're doing here is you are collecting shards, right? And with those, I think it's shards of hatred, you have to purify them at some specific shrines. And when you purify them, everyone in the area will get notified that, hey, there's a player who wants to purify those shards. Kill him. And when you do that, you will drop a potion of your shards you have collected before, and people can just steal them. If you manage to purify the shards, you are safe. Nobody can steal them anymore. That's your currency. What you're doing with the currency? Well, you can go in some safe havens in some cities at those fields of hatreds, and you can go to a merchant who is then selling items to you. You can see it right here on the left side, and it's a bit like the gambling for PvE, but this will be for PvE. Also, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be mistaken here, they just showed us the PvP specific mount. They have already announced that they will have some mounts and some equipment which will be PvP only, but they are just for looks. They're not giving you something special. They are just bragging rights, so to speak. So I think this is the PvP specific mount you can get, which is kind of interesting because the vendor doesn't have any mounts. So I wonder if there is another vendor, or if you were getting it when you have done like a certain amount of PvP. Unfortunately, they didn't give us any new information. They didn't really explain to us how the PvP will work exactly. Like, we know from the beta that there is a PvP stat in game, which is reducing the damage you're receiving in PvP by, what was it, like 94% or something like that. And they haven't really talked about how the PvP in Diablo will go down. Even in this video, they kind of explained everyone how cool PvP is, and if you like PvP, you definitely should check it out. But that was more or less it. I will be honest, from what I've seen, from what we have heard now, PvP at the beginning will be pretty much the Wild West of Diablo 4. So prepare your butt for that. Yeah. There is one thing which is super interesting, and you can see it here for a second. Requires level 37. I wonder if this is the level you need to actually do PvP in Diablo. Because, so in the beta, in Act 1, if you decide to stay with Act 1, that's a big question mark. But if you decide to stay with Act 1, the first 25 levels, there is no PvP. There is no PvP area. This is why we didn't have any PvP in the open beta. And then it seems like in the other areas we are finally getting PvP. So I wonder if you need to reach level 37 before you can actually do PvP, or how that works. Because let's be real here, the higher the level, the higher your equipment, you will have a huge advantage in PvP. And I'm hoping that Blizzard is doing something about it at some point, but I have my doubts. Like, we will not get the fairness we are getting in Lost Ark, right? In Lost Ark, when you were going into an arena, everyone has the same equipment, the same points they can spend. Like, everyone is basically getting synchronized, and the only thing which matters in Lost Ark is how good are you, right? And I have the feeling that is not what we are getting here in the Diablo PvP. So we will see. I would have loved to see a little bit more about it, but unfortunately, that's all we got. With that said, though, we are done with the video. If you enjoyed this and if you enjoyed the information given to you, I would appreciate if you might consider to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We have tons of Diablo videos here on the channel already, and there are more to come in the foreseeable weeks leading up to the release of Diablo 4. And then, of course, when Diablo 4 is coming around, there will be much, much more. I will also try to focus quite a bit on PvP, depending on how much fun it is, right? So if you are somebody who actually loves to see some PvP in action, you might want to subscribe to the channel. With that said, thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.